Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Centric. This being your show, we're talking about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Blindspot. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I love we had that whole cute thing at the beginning, and it obviously plays a role in the episode. It's the whole thing with Bethany and Patterson and just being so cute and adorable. I love that. Like, it's just kind of neat, just like a little family moment. Everyone's gathering and stuff like that. The little winks and nods to the whole Tasha and Reed situation is like, oh, you two aren't going to shower together. And he's like, watch it. He's like, come on, I'm not even at work, so I can say all the inappropriate things I want. I love Rich so much. But obviously, like, there's some stuff that's happening at the office. Basically, shows up again. He's willing to give information about a potential terrorist attack, but he wants, a deal and stuff, witness protection type of stuff. But the fact is, when Kurt's talking to him and everything, he's kind of all over the place and stuff. And I was like, that's so interesting. Like, 'cause I was like, oh, maybe he's so terrified that, he's so busy talking about what he wants and stuff like that he can't 100% focus on things. So Kurt goes like, okay, so he's so used to being in control. Maybe we put things in a certain perspective. We'll kind of, get him, like, we'll kind of, give a little leeway. It's like, okay, here, write down some of the stuff you want. That way, you can focus more on, like, giving us the information. But it turns out that was kind of a ploy, because he ends up slipping up, because he is like, oh, I'm still in control. I'm coming up with all these lies and stuff like that. But then he says something that is like, oh, it ends up being the truth about, like, obviously there's truth mixed in with lies and stuff like that. But, like, there was a fight that he saw, but it's like there was a glitch on the streaming or whatever of it. So it's like, the only way you would have caught and known all those details is if you were there at yourself. It's like, boom, got him. I love when people get kind of caught up in little slip-ups like that. I thought that was pretty neat, because it turns out everything that's going down in this episode, that Pavel guy infiltrating that Blue Annex group, which they're doing modifications at the FBI, and I love Patterson being so pissed off about it, because, like, for her, the way everything kind of operates at the FBI, like, she kind of built the system and stuff like that. And also, we never found out why, but her and Perkins, the dude running everything, kind of like remodeling all the stuff, it's like, oh, like, apparently they have bad blood. So that was definitely interesting. It's kind of interesting too, because, like, obviously, like, a big part of the episode is also, like, because of like a lot of the systems are down. They're kind of, like, not aware of everything that's going down. Like, for example, Perkins getting murdered, which kind of sucks, because you could tell, like, Patterson feels bad about it, because she admits later on, she's like, actually, some of the stuff Perkins was deciding to do kind of streamlined and all that stuff, made things faster, so he actually did a great job. And she actually feels bad, because she's like, oh man, I was talking so much crap about him. She's like, actually, this is your fault. And Rich is like, what? She's like, yeah, I'm spending all this time with you. He's like, don't blame me, the dude is dead here in the server room with us. He's like right over there. So that's interesting. But I also thought it was kind of interesting, the whole Brianna approach to things, too, of, like, well, for one, the whole thing of, like, Dominic reaching out to her, I was like, oh, that's interesting. To be fair, we see, like, that plays a role in everything, because everything, we still have not circled back to it in a good couple episodes, is the whole White's situation of, like, oh, yeah, he's under, part of this situation, Madeline / Dominic is blackmailing him. But I'm curious, like, what that ultimately will turn into. We've seen stuff that might be, because obviously White's has kind of been reluctant to move forward with some stuff a couple episodes back, but beyond that, we haven't really seen, like, a big pushes for, like, what he's necessary for what they've got planned and stuff like that. So there's that. And then there's the whole situation of, like I said, just the whole fact is that Dominic's got so many people under his thumb, but he's trying to, get at Brianna, because, like, for her, it's like, oh, she feels, invisible, not wanted, not special, because there was that whole episode about, like, obviously the book that she's writing about everything. So, but it seems like in this episode, they really kind of step it up. I love the whole, like there with, like, Patterson and everything. She's there with Richie and Patterson, because, apparently Patterson is trying to make a, app to kind of solve puzzles for Bethany and everything, and it's like, oh yeah, Rich being like, oh, look at you playing that aunt role, like, very, seriously. And she's like, well, she's at that young age, things are kind of connecting in her head and stuff like that. And then Rich is like, oh, so you're trying to make her a little you or something. She's like, no. And it's like, your no means yes in a certain regard in that situation. It's kind of adorable, because it's like, oh, here's an opportunity to mold this young mind and kind of be, smart and intellectual like me. I love that. I thought that was kind of cute in that regard. But I love like the 20 question situation. I also love like the fact is like, oh wait, you guys coming up with stuff. What was it? The name, they're trying to name the app and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, Brianna's like, oh, you come up with a nickname for me? It's like, no, nicknames are earned around here. Ask, what was it? What did he call her? Gravy Butt or Gravy Blood or something like that? Like, they had to, like, funny nicknames have to be earned around there or something like that. But then it's like, oh, let's turn this into, like, 20 questions. And it's like, oh, so which one do you prefer? Do you prefer to go out or do you prefer to stay in? And it's like, oh, like, Brianna's like, oh, I prefer to go out. And it's like, yeah, you know, on a Friday night. And then Patterson's like, oh, stay in with Hulu and stuff like that. Which it makes you wonder, is that supposed to be like a wink and a nod? Because let's not forget the show is also on Hulu. So I don't know if that's supposed to be like a wink and a nod. Probably not. I mean, it's just like, probably like the same thing as them referencing Netflix and Stranger Things. But it's just funny to me. But nevertheless, and it's just kind of all these weird questions he starts asking. Like at one point, it's like, oh, are you know, like if you were in a financial emergency, do you think you'd be able to resolve it yourself? And in her case, you know, Patterson's like, well, yeah, but then Brianna's like, well, the fact of the matter is I haven't gotten a raise in a very long time, so no. And you have Rich being like, wow, yeah, nice way to kind of just, this is supposed to be a little fun and lighthearted, and you just completely broke the whole situation down. But it turns out the question he's in fact asking are connected to an adoption agency question, and it turns out Patterson's been looking into it, and Rich is like, okay, yes, I know about it because I've, you know, went into your browsing history a couple of times. And she's like, come on. And it's so interesting. It's like, huh, you would have never thought that was something that was on Patterson's mind. She's never really shown an interest, but, you know, now it kind of makes sense to whole her spending so much time with Bethany and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, for her, she's like, I'm not sure what I want, you know? I mean, the fact is she's kind of like, not sure if she could, you know, but I love, you know, Rich being like, no, we can do this. And she's like, no, like almost being like, what? I love that anytime the whole conversation comes up about her potentially adopting whatever, like he throws himself in the situation too, because it's like, nah, you taking care of a baby, you raising a child. It's like, nah, I got your back in this situation. We're going to be like good co-parents and stuff like that. I love it. I think it's so neat. I also love like the whole, like, you know, it's like, oh, you know, Reed's got that whole date with, well, non-date date with college pal Lexi, and I love the whole situation of Rich kind of being like, oh, you know, you should kind of test things out, you know, just in case the whole, you know, in case, you know, just on the off chance the whole you and Patterson thing ever happens. And Reed's like, what? He's like, you know me, I'm just putting that out there in the universe. And he's like, Reed's like, there's something wrong with you, and Rich is like, yeah. I'm like, why is that? That's so random. Why is that even there? Like, obviously, like, I guess because Tasha's so real, so him and Patterson, I wonder, is that some, like, it just seems out of nowhere. Is that something people have been shipping over the course of the show or something like that? Like, has people always been pushing for Reed and Patterson? Like, you never know about certain shippings until, like, I don't know, maybe that's been a thing. I have no idea. I just loved it. It just came out of nowhere. Because it's also kind of sweet because Tasha's a little bothered by the fact is, oh, he's having, you know, coffee with a pal, college pal named Lexi. It's like, I don't know why it's bothering me. It's like, no, it's understandable. Like, you feel the way you are. Dude, you can't just like, because Tasha's like, no, it doesn't really matter and stuff like that. But it's like, yeah, don't hide how you feel, you know, because it's like, even with things being complicated with Jane and Kurt, it's like she still felt the way that she did about him and still does, and so like there's no hiding it. But for Tasha, it's like, oh, you know, obviously like inner work relationships and romances like gets complicated and messy. She's like, no offense, and Jane's like, no offense taken. It's like, I mean, when you look at Jane and Kurt's relationship, it's a whole bunch of crazy. I mean, especially everything that went down this season, the whole Remy situation. It's like, that's a wrench in a workplace romance that no one would ever go through. That's something uniquely to them. So I just thought that was kind of like a neat little thing. So but I do like that Brianna's the one that kind of comes up with like a lot of the main ideas in this episode. And I guess it's to kind of help that whole thing of like her feeling kind of invisible, but she plays a role in everything. She's the one that decided like, oh, well, we got enough the numbers to kind of get into the computer and everything, so why don't we use kind of using math equations and stuff like that. And Patterson's kind of looking impressed, and Tasha laughing. It's like, what's so funny? It's like, well, usually it's Patterson that kind of handles like doing the math stuff, and then Patterson's like, well, I've been too plugged in, so I probably kind of lost a step or two in that. And she's also the one that kind of goes like, oh yeah, Pavel is after revenge because his family were killed in a drone strike. He's trying to, he's working with Show to get to the people or the person he holds responsible for his family's death. So I thought that, it's like, oh, good idea. And I love that, like, Rich was like, see, that's how you get a nickname. I forgot what it was exactly she had said that he was like, that's not how you get a nickname or whatever. But, so that was interesting. I like the overarching message a lot that this has for, like, Jane and Kurt. Because Kurt, for him, it's like, he wants to spend as much time with his daughter. Like, obviously, his mom being back in his life and everything. They kind of used a lot of their savings to kind of put her in a position so that she can get help and stuff and be taken care of. But it's a situation of, like, he doesn't want to have that situation where it's like, oh, like, a complicated relationship he has with his mom. He doesn't want that to be him and Bethany. He wants her to know how much he loves her. He's, obviously spends as much time with her. And Jane's like, you're doing the best you can. Like, obviously, Kurt, it's like, okay, we can, take some vacation time off, like, spend time with her like that, eventually move back to Colorado. That way you can watch her grow up and everything. But, for now, it's like the work we're doing is important because we get to save the world by doing so, and we're making the world a better place for her to grow up in. But after talking to that, was she a general? The lady that they have to protect from Pavel in this episode, like, the conversation came up because obviously for her it's like she left work behind to kind of focus on her family, and it still kind of managed to find its way into her stuff. It's that sad situation of even when you walk away, you still kind of get dragged back into that world and everything like that. It's still something she has to deal with on a daily basis of threats and stuff like that from stuff she did back in the day. Now kind of coming back to kind of deal with her. So it's like, hug your child. She's like, you have a daughter, right? Just hug her. Like, because you never know when you might, never get that chance again. Because the fact of the matter is, even when you walk away, things still don't play out the way you think. That the story won't end the way you might hope it to. So I thought that was kind of interesting. And obviously that's a lot for Kurt to kind of think about. And I think that's obviously setting up his and Jane's future about, like, them potentially walking away from this. Like, yeah, we're saving the world. We're doing good work. But, there's a lot more important things on a personal level for them. So it's like, because he wants to spend as much time with his daughter as well as spend as much time with Jane. The whole conversation hasn't really come up before, too. But the fact is that, like, I think they might have talked about it before, like, potentially having kids of their own. I don't know if they've actually, I feel like I vaguely remember them talking about that, but maybe that's just my imagination. I'm sure that's something that's potentially in the works and stuff like that. Potentially something they might want to be considering. I don't know. It's kind of interesting because obviously, like, everyone's kind of considering the next stages of their life, like even the whole Tasha situation. It was kind of pretty badass of her, like, rescuing, like, Edgar the way she did, kind of putting him out when he was lit on fire by Show and Pavel. So, and that whole situation, obviously, she does care about him, even though she's kind of reluctant to show her feelings. But when it's all said and done, he calls off his non-date date with Lexi, which maybe it was, a non-date in his mind. Maybe he was just kind of too scared to really say anything because he's not 100% sure where him and Tasha stand. But I think he's starting to recognize, like, no matter where me and Tasha stand, I know how I feel about her, and you can tell Tasha. It's just that thing of, like, I think just everything that they've been through, they're super reluctant to kind of take those steps forward. Because the moment they did, then there's the whole complicated thing of, like, her going undercover with the CIA. It's, so it plays, the timing's just never right with them, so maybe the timing will be right at some point. Kind of hope so. But, it's like, oh yeah, things kind of work out. Like, obviously there's, like, the terrible silver lining of, like, oh yeah, Perkins and, a couple people are dead. But obviously it takes, you're kind of like, oh man, like, you have everything with Brianna, like, oh yeah, like, you did good work today and stuff like that. I know you've been kind of searching for more, so, talk to me. And Brianna's kind of happy about it, and she contacts Dominic and it's like, I want nothing to do with this. But Dominic was like, oh, honestly, you don't have a choice. If you decided to do this willingly and with all of this, so it would have been fine. You would have never found out you didn't have a choice, but now you want to go against it. You're finding out you don't have a choice. He's threatening her parents. So it's like, you do this for me, or there's going to be problems, and it's sad. Like, what we see is her breaking into Jane and Kurt's place and going into their safe. And I'm assuming she took something from there, not less it's planting something. But I'd assume, like, but the thing is, what would you be taking from there? Like, is it not unless it's a thing of like you're trying to destroy them, so it's like you're planting some evidence or something like that. Obviously, whatever it is, you can tell it must be super personal or something really bad for, you know, the look on Brianna's face. Like you can tell she's sad having to do this, you know, and especially because she's trying to work her way. You know, she's good with the team and everything. She's proven herself this episode, just to kind of have that kind of taken away from her for very dominant. It's understandable though, like, and hopefully the team will understand, but we'll have to ultimately wait and see where that ends up taking us going forward into next episode. Because there's also, once again, like the whole future too, kind of ending it more on a, you know, happier note, was the whole Patterson situation of Rich signed the whole thing up for her and everything, and it's like all you have to do is press send, and she's like, what? You know, she's like, my life is crazy. Like, how can I make room for a kid or something like that? And he's like, how can we? And she's like, dude, stop. But like I said, I like that because I think they'd be very interesting parents. Like, obviously the way they butt heads and stuff like that, but they make such a good team, Rich and Patterson. So I'd love to see what that ends up happening, especially Patterson, because I like what Rich's point was. Like, the fact is, this adoption process can be very lengthy, and the fact is, by the time you've already decided like whether you want to or not, like, you know, you don't want to be having to go through the process. Then it's like, let it kind of be set up for you, and then eventually, you know, you can decide whether you want to go through it or not. And she does, you know, send the form, because after, you know, video chat with Kurt and Bethany, it kind of like makes her smile and just solidifies in her mind of like, okay, I might be wanting to give this a chance. So I'm very interested to see where things kind of take us, you know, with Patterson in that regard. I'm very interested to see what the next episode has in store for us. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and